Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 19th consecutive monthly picket action for US-Canada Hands Off Venezuela, End Sanctions on Venezuela, Free Alex Saab. Today's event has been organized by the Venezuela Peace Committee in Winnipeg, the Fire This Time Movement for Social Justice Venezuela Solidarity Campaign, and Just Peace Advocates with the support of Venezuela solidarity organizations and individuals across Canada. My name is Allison Bodine. I am on the editorial board of the Fire This Time newspaper, coordinator of the Fire This Time Venezuela Solidarity Campaign, and author of the book Revolution and Counter-Revolution in Venezuela from Battle of Ideas Press. I am really excited and looking forward to tonight's excellent panel and honored to have with us here the wife of Venezuelan diplomat unjustly held in US prisons, Alex Saab, CAMILLA SAAB. During a recent hearing of the US Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Democratic Senator Bob Menendez, the chairman of the committee, threatened, quote, unilateral concessions to a leader that tortures his political opponents is unacceptable. It is not a path towards successful negotiation. And it's something the Biden administration, as well as newly elected leaders across Latin America, should keep in mind. Senator Menendez is demonizing President Maduro and the government of Venezuela and justifying brutal US sanctions and blockade, which impact all aspects of life in Venezuela. Sanctions by the US government and their allies, including Canada, continue to deny people in Venezuela access to food, medicine, and basic necessities. And that is why we organize these monthly picket actions. Venezuelan diplomat Alex Saab, who is currently unjustly held in US prisons, was en route to Iran to negotiate a deal to alleviate the effects of sanctions when he was initially held in Cape Verde on orders of the United States and then kidnapped to the United States almost 1 year ago, where he's continued to face torture and unjust treatment in jail. We're really, as I said, honored to have with us here CAMILLA SAAB, who's leading the campaign from Venezuela, but also the wide range of voices from across Canada and the United States that join the monthly picket actions. We're here to unite our voices and to really demand that the United States government and their allies, including Canada, end their brutal attacks, sanctions on Venezuela, and that Alex Saab be freed immediately. We also have here, I'll go through our panel and then we'll go ahead and get started. I also must recognize that today's webinar is being broadcast from the unceded territories of the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam nations, and that we must recognize that and reflect on that in all aspects of our work for social justice and for humanity. Tonight's panel features special guest, of course, CAMILLA SAAB, followed by LUISA MARTINEZ, who I was very excited to meet first in Venezuela almost 1 year ago, who is a Chilean union organizer and community organizer based in Portland in the United States with the Democratic Socialists of America International Committee. Then we'll have CIKIAH Thomas, who is the international ambassador for the Global African Congress and an executive member of the Canadian Network on Cuba. And then greetings from Professor Luis Acuna, the Charge d'Affaires of the Venezuela Embassy in Canada, who's joining us from Venezuela. Thank you again for everyone joining tonight. Following our panel, we'll have greetings from people across Canada, as well as a time to take a group photo together and express our demands to free Alex Saab and end all sanctions on Venezuela. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming CAMILLA SAAB.
Buenas noches a todos.
Good evening to everyone, and thank you, Alison Budin, for organizing this webinar. This space so that we can present once again what my husband is suffering. Alex Saab, who is a Venezuelan diplomat who is kidnapped in the US. In Canada, they are raising their voices in favor of Venezuelans, their right to self-determination of the peoples, and demanding Alex Saab to be freed, the father of my daughters and my husband. And us as a family, we are very thankful and we keep on saying, free Alex Saab. A few months ago, we were asking comrades who were willing to send letters supporting Alex Saab, and the letters since the beginning of this nightmare have been a very relevant element because they have been useful as a hug, as a voice. And every time I read his handwriting, the letters he sends me, I feel I can hear his own voice. We have received letters from the Venezuelan people, different comrades of the Caribbean, here in Venezuela, Brazil, the US, and Canada. Alison sent a letter to Alex, and after waiting for a long time, he replied to this letter, and I'd like to make it public today. And I'd like to read to you, Alison, the letter that Alex has sent you. I have it here. I have printed it and I'm going to send it to you. And he replied in 20 September, Movement for Social Justice Fire this time, Alison Medin. Hello, Alison, to you and everyone in the movement. It has been a great joy to receive your letter and get to know the support you have been giving me, my family, and the people of Venezuela. The unilateral sanctions that have been imposed by the US to our country are the cruelest way of violence a nation can be subject to. Venezuela loves peace. The people of Venezuela is noble, hardworking, and we struggle a lot. The ambition of some will never be above the willingness of the people. We have resisted and we will keep on doing so. And undoubtedly, we will become stronger as a nation and as human beings after this tremendous sanction. Social justice has to prevail if we want a better world. I want to thank you for the support provided by the movement to my family and to Venezuela. I hope I can receive all of you at home by my wife and my sons. I will send you this to you, Alison. I would like to thank the solidarity that has been expressed by everyone, and I would like to thank all the persons who have written letters to Alex, giving him strength because this has given him a lot of strength. I would like to invite you to keep on speaking to Alex through your letters because, as I have said, he becomes stronger so that he can resist these terrible attacks he is experiencing. I ask you to please keep on denouncing this terrible lawfare that seeks to damage diplomatic relations by the United States government. I would like to update to give you an update about everything that's going on with Alex right now. And as you know, we are fighting for the recognition of diplomatic immunity. And yesterday, it was an authorization for these testimonies to be given through Zoom. And this is very important because the Department of Justice was trying to deny his right to defense because unable to get to the US for witnesses. That was something impossible. The Department of Justice was not making these visas available for the persons who were going to show that that Alex should be granted immunity. In order to be granted a visa, the first appointment in the embassy in Colombia, the closest country, was for October 2024. Without any guarantee, this could be achieved. So yesterday, having this guarantee that they can participate through Zoom, to us, this has been a great relief. And this has been very important for Alex's defense. We have requested before the Department of Justice and the West through the judiciary all the classified documents and unclassified documents from all agencies in the US, the CIA, the DEA, the Department of Justice, the Department of State, and all departments, all those documents, because we are sure that those documents include fundamental elements, key elements to show that Alex was in a diplomatic mission in June 2020 and they were aware he was in a mission. The immunity trial will take place in December 12th this year. That's when the trial will take place, and we will prove that Alex is a diplomat. The arguments being presented by the Department of Justice against us are that he is not being recognized as a diplomat because they recognize Guaido as the president of Venezuela and not Nicolas Maduro as legitimate president. And another argument is that the fact that Cape Verde has already decided on the immunity of Alex and this immunity has not been recognized. And this is completely false because Cape Verde has never debated or contradicted this. Cape Verde has also sent me or issued diplomatic visas to me and my daughters in our diplomatic Venezuelan passport. That also shows that Cape Verde respected the constitution and international law and all international agreements. So we will keep on fighting so that this narrative, this lie is dismantled. And I invite you to keep on denouncing these terrible attacks we are experiencing as a family and the terrible lawfare that cannot continue to damage a nation, the Venezuelan people, and a person, an individual person. Thank you for all your support during the last months, and we will keep on saying free Alex Saab. Thank you, Alison.
Thank you very much, Camilla. And of course, thank you to Alex for responding to the letter. What a big surprise that was, and such beautiful words of strength and assurance that Alex will be free and will be home with you and your children and with the people of Venezuela. I know that we also feel that victory will be possible. Victory is at hand, and we are on the right side of history. So free Alex Saab. We will see him at home soon. Thank you again for joining us today and giving us an update about his case. We will continue to mobilize along with the Free Alex Saab movement in Venezuela on the 16th of every month. And also very important that as Venezuela solidarity activists across Canada and the United States, that we know the dates of his trial in Miami, and that we are ready to go to Miami if we can, or to organize events in our own cities. So we will be in touch about the plans here in North America. I also, just wanted to share a special thank you to Alex for the reply to the letter. That's very, the letter campaign, I think is important that we continue to correspond and let the US government know, but also let people in the prison where Alex is know that he is not alone and that the people of the world are watching. And so let's continue that important work as well. Yesterday in Venezuela, there was a beautiful march of campesinos, of farmers in support of Alex Saab, and we'll put some links in the chat about that event and the ongoing work of the committee. Thank you so much again. We're going to show now, as part of our continued work for Alex Saab, the Alex Saab movement in Venezuela has created a documentary, and we're going to show just the trailer of that documentary, but the full documentary is available online and very much encouraged to be shown far and wide, and to have hopefully upcoming events all across North America where we can show this important film. So we'll go ahead and show the trailer here, and a big thank you to all the producers and everyone that put the film together.
Todas las opciones están sobre la mesa, todas. Las fuertes y las menos fuertes.
Asumir formalmente las competencias.
Más sanciones, más presión.
La mejor resolución sería acelerar el colapso.
Perdimos muchas vidas con ese bloqueo.
Porque nos robaron Citgo, porque nos robaron monómeros, porque no quedaron recursos, porque nos incautaron el oro en Inglaterra y los niños se mueren.
En el año 2018, Alex Saab es nombrado enviado especial de Venezuela, y esta es una copia de su nombramiento oficial.
Llega a la bolsa y me da escalofrío, mira que no estoy mintiendo, llega a la bolsa y la gente, la comunidad salía como desesperada.
Había detrás como una mano mágica.
Este barco es el Fortune y es el primero de los 5 buques iraníes cargados de gasolina que ha entrado en aguas territoriales de Venezuela.
Venezuela, detrás de esos barcos estaba Alex Saab.
Que no existía un orden de detención de Cabo Verde, no existía un orden de detención de Interpol.
La violación más grasa, más evidente, en este caso es el artículo 29 de la Convención de Viena.
Por primera vez en la historia del mundo, nosotros podemos decir que se llegó a detener a un funcionario diplomático.
En mi carrera no he visto algo semejante.
Si tú ayudas a Venezuela, entonces te vamos a secuestrar, te vamos a vestir de naranja y te vamos a mostrar ante todo el mundo como un criminal, porque tú fuiste en contra de los intereses de los Estados Unidos.
¿A costa de qué? De que nos está haciendo un bien a todos los venezolanos. No me parece justo.
Hi, everyone. It seems the trailer might have frozen on Zoom. It was fine on the Facebook feed, so unfortunately, I don't know what is wrong, but we'll put the link to the trailer and to the full video in the chat. It is probably something with the internet, unfortunately. The links are now there, so I encourage everyone to watch the trailer and also to watch the full video and to share it. If we come up with a solution, we will play it again at the end. So the next part of our program is going to be words coming from an activist and organizer in the United States, who I had the pleasure to meet and work with briefly in Venezuela during the last large Venezuelan election campaign in November of 2021. Luisa and I were both international observers. Luisa Martinez is a Chilean union organizer during the day and a community organizer at night. Her union council has seen 7 strikes in the past 4 years. She is a proud communist, a steering committee member of the Democratic Socialists of America International Committee, and helped found Hands Off Venezuela in Portland, Oregon, in the United States. Luisa, the floor is yours.
Thank you. First off, I wanted to say that I'm just a lady, not to be. I'm still a feminist, not to be dismissive of my own contributions, but I don't hold any particularly prestigious positions. So I say that to lead into being very appreciative that I can be part of today's monthly Picket. So thank you, Allison, for the invitation. One thing I did do was help plan what was ultimately called the Venezuelan Feminist Tour, which was organized through a DSA IC, the International Committee, in conjunction with Code Pink, in particular Leo Flores, who I will continue to owe a debt of gratitude forever. And so we teamed up to host 3 Venezuelan feminist activists. Their names were Monica, Angie, and Yolimar. And they came to the United States to discuss the impact of illegal US sanctions against Venezuela, but particularly how they disproportionately hurt women and children. And so just briefly, this tour was a product of the delegation that the Democratic Socialists of America famously sent, at least within DSA, sent to Venezuela. We got attacked really strongly from like Fox News and stuff like that. It was a really great time. And so we also worked with El Instituto Simón Bolívar in terms of coordinating their travel. And so between May 28th and June 11th, they toured 7 US cities: New York City, Philly, Washington, DC, Durham, North Carolina, because it seems like kind of an outlier. We have a comrade there who had just visited Venezuela as part of the anti-fascism conference. They visited Portland, Oregon, where I am. They stayed with me, San Francisco, and Los Angeles. And so in LA, they ended as guest speakers at the People Summit, which was a really successful cultural and political counter to the 9th Summit of the Americas hosted by the United States and President Biden. And so local DSA chapters hosted the delegations and coordinated local events as they traveled across to talk about life under illegal US sanctions, but then also Venezuelan resistance to hybrid war, right? And so we wanted to focus on giving a feminist perspective because it's an angle that is often not talked about, even on the left sometimes. And also because in the United States, there's a newfound, let's just say, resurgence of feminist thought and feminist activism because of, the recent Supreme Court overruling Roe versus Wade, which was the federal right to abortion. And so just to give some perspective, a little bit of background about the 3 women. So Yolimar is an industrial engineer, and she's a member of the Internationalist Brigade of Brazil's Landless Workers Movement, MST. She's in Venezuela, but she's a member of the MST, and she's also part of Todas Nosotras Violeta movement, which offers workshops on sexual and reproductive rights. Her and Angie are part of this organization. And so she also worked as an engineer for PDVSA and Petrocaribe. And so she gave perspective on how Venezuela, under the Bolivarian Revolution, was able to use the wealth created by the petroleum industry to fund social programs that benefited the Venezuelan working class, right? She also gave testimony as a PDVSA worker and how illegal sanctions impacted the ability to maintain the industry, right? To maintain facilities, to refine, to pump the oil out of the ground because it was so difficult to get parts, and how because of those difficulties, it devastated many of the social programs that even the UN recognizes as significantly improving the overall standard of life of Venezuelans, particularly poor Venezuelans and Venezuelan women and children. Angie, she was also part of the delegation. She's an indigenous YU feminist and activist. YU are the largest indigenous group in Venezuela. She's also an administrator and treasurer of a civil association which gives workshops to indigenous rights in areas that are at risk of coal mining. She has a lot of accolades. She gave a background as an indigenous woman whose territory extends into Colombia. That's one of the examples that she gave. And because Colombia fell victim to being a US client state for so long, it made it difficult for her to move within her own territory, right? And I smile when I say this because at that time, back in May, we spoke privately about kind of her hopes in El Pacto, right? With Gustavo Petro and Francia Marquez. And now we know that they won. But one of the things that she said was, the indigenous community in Colombia and then also in Venezuela hugely, really strongly supported Petro. And so I'm glad that, there's greater hope there in improving, obviously, diplomatic relations between Colombia and Venezuela, but also for indigenous communities. And then we had Monica. She is a professor, a writer, a student of Afro-Venezuelan drumming traditions. Again, lots of accolades. She's an academic. And so her testimony was particularly appreciated because she spoke about the Venezuelan community and particularly the community of women who organized and continued to organize in resistance against the illegal blockade. The creative capacity of women under the circumstances, right, that they've been put under. And it was important for us as organizers, right, the group of people who organized the event, not to fall into this narrative of Venezuelans as mere victims of US terrorism, right? Those of us who are knowledgeable about Venezuela understand how inspiring the Bolivarian Revolution and the Venezuelan Socialist Project is. I'll speak personally to my own political development as a communist and a Latin American immigrant. She also spoke about Afro-Venezuelan drumming, tambor, and how critical it is to maintain cultural identity when you're under warfare, right, by the US government. And so I'll speak very personally about this. I was an undocumented immigrant until I was 21 years old. I grew up poor and all I knew was other poor Latin Americans, right, as my family's friends. And so that was an experience based in class. And I couldn't travel south. I couldn't travel to Latin America because I couldn't come back. I was undocumented. And so, if I had never bothered to learn anything else about Latin America, all I think is that it was, the South is just a poor place full of dictators and poor brown people, right? And so I say that because that's probably what a lot of people think about the global South, really. And so it's important to relate to the ordinary working class in ways that might not be overtly political, right? In ways that Monica stated that were based in community and sorority and culture. And so I'll briefly share just some photos. So these are the women. This is Angie, Monica, and Yolimar. Here they are in the People's Forum in New York, Philadelphia. Here they are meeting with a representative. I don't remember quite which one. This was in DC. I wasn't there. The DC event. This was them in Portland. And so it was a good turnout. San Francisco. The more the tour went on, the greater we saw attendance. It was really great. And so finally here they were at the counter summit in Los Angeles. So I just wanted to share some photos with you guys, and I'll stop there. Thanks so much, Allison.
Thank you, Luisa. That tour was definitely a big success, and I think an example. We need to do more of that to raise the funds and put on the political pressure where needed to make sure people can get visas to do people-to-people exchanges in the United States and here in Canada as well. I think it really I've talked to a few people who were able to participate in the tour, and they learned a lot from the Venezuelans that were able to be there. And like you said, I think, you know, we are able to struggle against criminal US sanctions because the people of Venezuela are also fighting, and because they are really showing an example to us of what it's like to try and find ways to live without having access to the world financial system, essentially, which is still controlled by the US government. And they are fighting back so hard and so creatively, and it really is a big inspiration to me as well personally, and to many of us on this call. And thanks for sharing a bit about your experience. I look forward to building more cross-border work together in the future. So to go on to our next panel speaker today, we have CIKIAH Thomas. CIKIAH was an active participant in the United Nations World Conference Against Racism held in South Africa in 2001, as well as a key planner of the African and African Descendant World Conference Against Racism in 2002. And this is where the Global African Congress was created. And the Global African Congress strives to accomplish its goal of equitable distribution of global resources by demanding reparatory justice, advocating for policies that combat institutional racism, and working to respect and ensure respect for Africans everywhere. CIKIAH is now the international ambassador of the Global African Congress, as well as a member of the executive committee of the Canadian Network on Cuba. And it's a great pleasure to have you here on the panel today. We're just going to go ahead and pull up a PowerPoint presentation that CIKIAH was also able to put together, which is great. Welcome, CIKIAH.
Thank you, Allison. Hello, Camilla and Luisa. Good afternoon, everybody. So today's presentation is broken down into 3 parts. First, I'd like to highlight the imperialist nefarious action against the Bolivian Republic of Venezuela, illustrating how the imperialists coordinate its oppressive action against Venezuela. Second, support for the Bolivian Republic of Venezuela democratization process. Third, why progressive must continue exposing the imperialist hypocrisy and oppression of its people. As an introduction, the low appetite in the United States for war, Washington has opened a playbook for regime change in Venezuela. Firstly, they demonize the target via some pretext to isolate it from the international community. Alison, you could go to the second slide. Impose sanction and its target. This was the playbook used to remove Gaddafi from power in Libya, leading to disastrous consequence of reducing the most prosperous and stable country in Africa to a failed state, where warlords run amok and a thriving slave market emerging. Finally, they identify a willing stooge and recognize him as a legitimate president. We all know who that is. The West's current aggression towards Bolivia is taken from a chapter of the old textbook of the imperialists for dealing with government that are generally progressive and take nationalist stand on sovereignty and against imperialism, as is currently taking place in Venezuela. The US Congress enacts an act and the 18th of December 2014, entitled Venezuela Defense of Human Rights and Civil Society Act. That act set out a framework for the application of sanctions by the US government against Venezuela. Sanctions pertaining to the freezing of Venezuelan assets in the use and to the prohibition of imports of Venezuelan goods into the United States. President Obama declared in 2014, state, Venezuela constitutes an extraordinary threat to national security of the United States, which provide the so-called framework, legal basis for the criminal sanction that follow and a statement against our sister Bolivian state. We all know that Obama's statement was absolute nonsense. In September 17th, the government of Canada enacted the regulation of economic matter that froze the asset of specific Venezuelan citizen and business in Canada and prohibit any Canadian resident anywhere in the world from engaging in economic transaction or providing financial service to the said Venezuelan citizen. Venezuela was made the subject of 3 different sets of crippling trade and economic restriction by the powerful European Union. The 13th of November, 2017, 22nd of January, 2018, restriction that imposed sanction to a host of Venezuelan government, official and institution.
CIKIAH, could you try speaking just a little bit louder? Thank you.
Right. Venezuela has been the target by the government of the United Kingdom via the adoption of the UK government. On the 15th November 2017 and the 22nd January 2018, a number of European Union sanctions against the trade and financial transaction of Venezuelan government. The British government has stolen Venezuelan money alongside its propaganda pretext of concern for human rights. Here I want to talk about calling a spade a spade. I do not think that the United Kingdom or the United States or Canada is in any position anywhere in the world to make any reference to anybody human rights record. They just need to look at what they themselves have done, particularly as far as the British and the Americans are concerned. The long-held history of oppression against people is well known. The US government kidnapped Venezuelan diplomat Alex Saab on fabricated charge, hoping to market his rubbish in a kangaroo court. That, I suggest all of us must continue to struggle vociferously against. And as we know, Alex Saab, a career diplomat, was kidnapped in the line of his duty for his country while trying to travel to Iran to negotiate the necessity of life. The United States is trying to demonstrate its extra punishment to demonstrate what the empire can do as part of its process of intimidating progressive governments trying to make social changes for its people. The policy and practices of kidnapping people. And I want to emphasize here how important it is, because this policy of kidnapping people started in the 17th century. The entire slave trade by the Europeans in Africa was an act of kidnapping people. The attendant genocide of the native people in the Americas and the Caribbean in service of capital was also part of that whole process of kidnapping and creating genocide. As we could remember, President Aristide of Haiti was kidnapped while in office by the United States, France, and the Canadian government in February 2004. This is a matter of historical record that we know that President Aristide was trying to build a democratic society in Haiti for the first time in its history, growing its own food for local consumption and not export, and the demand of France paying reparation. So I want to highlight that because if we look at the parallel and similarities, we recognize that is precisely what Venezuela is trying to do, trying to develop a democratic society and to cater for its own people by developing policy and implementing policy that is in keeping with the best interests of Venezuela and not the interests of the imperialists. And that is the sin that they have committed. And I want to show the similarities between what the United States, France, and Canada did to Haiti, to Aristide back then, and to show what they're doing today. Again, similar. Cuba has experienced 60+ years of a criminal US economic embargo. Just before leaving office, Donald Trump and his Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, committed egregious crime by placing Cuba and the United States Department of Unilateral List of state sponsors of terrorism. Far from being a perpetrator or co-sponsor of terrorism, Cuba has been the victim of no less than 713 acts of terrorism, the vast majority of which have been organized, financed, and executed by entities of the United States government or by persons or organizations that are based in that country and find refugees inside of United States territory. Instead of Alex Saab being on trial, the United States of America, most of the European member states and Canada should be on trial for the enormity of its crime they have committed over centuries and have not yet been held accountable. So we need to spin the narrative and show who the real criminals are. Crime of kidnapping millions of Africans for the European slave trade as enslaved person, crime on the plantation, and native genocide are crimes that these countries have not been held accountable for, and we must insist and remind them when they get engaged in the hypocrisy about Venezuela. Canada likes to pride itself as a country of law, but it has lost, but this is lost on the Canadian government when it comes to Venezuela. Nicolas Maduro is the legitimate president of Venezuela, having won a presidential election in which over 6 million Venezuelans voted in 2018. President Nicolas Maduro and his government are justice seekers working to build a just society, ensuring judicious, if not total equitable distribution of the Venezuelan resources for the people and building a people democratic institution. We must expose the corporate media disinformation and misinformation to the populace. We must expose and challenge more assiduously the economic ruling classes and the political elite, whom cruelty against Venezuela, Cuba, and Nicaragua are routine. We must challenge the ruling class domination over the poor, including imprisonment of racialized and working class people. We should draw more global attention to the US, UK, and Canada prison industrial complex that populate their prison with Native people, Blacks, and Chileans. We must expose the everyday institutionalized racism that govern this country. The government of President Nicolas Maduro and the working people of Venezuela are working to build and bring more justice to the people of Venezuela, while the United States of America, European Union, and Canadian government are going in the opposite direction with its imposition of unilateral coercive measures for the most pervasive and cruel act against the Venezuelan people. We in Canada ask, what legal framework can Justin Trudeau government use to justify its crime, justify its claim that Juan Guaido is president of Venezuela? And what legal, ethical, and moral basis can Global Affairs Canada, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, lobby and put pressure on the Organization of American States to support its ludicrous action that Juan Guaido is president of Venezuela? Please take note, the European ruling classes and their descendants that have been breaking international law, disrespecting other countries, other people's custom, and system of government since the 17th century has continued with that practice today against Venezuela, Cuba, Nicaragua, Libya, and other countries that they do not like. They continue to propagate their myth that they have concern about human rights and want to bring civilization to justify their action. The attack on Venezuela should also be seen in the context of the super billionaire and local Venezuelan oligarchy not wanting to share the country resources with the working people and historically disenfranchised, such as Black and Indigenous people. Venezuelan natural resources belong to the people of Venezuela and must be used to improve their lives and not the profit margin of the imperialist corporation and government. We are standing in support of the principle of the Venezuelan sovereignty and its right to self-determination. So as we continue to express our solidarity with the people of Venezuela, we say, long live the struggle of the people of Venezuela. Long live the struggle against imperialism. We say to the Venezuelan people, forward ever, backward never.
Thank you very much, CIKIAH. The movement, of course, of our solidarity with Venezuela is based on the right of where you ended, the right of the people of Venezuela to sovereignty and self-determination. And that is what we must focus on to get people involved and bring them over to our struggle in solidarity with Venezuela and for freedom of Alex Saab, which is very much related to the struggle of all oppressed people, as you have explained so well in your presentation. So thank you very much for joining us here today. Before we go on to our section where we take a group photo together and hear some short greetings from people across Canada, we now have with us Professor Luis Acuña. He is currently the Charge d'Affaires of the Venezuelan Embassy here in Canada, but is speaking to us from Venezuela. Professor Acuña is the former governor of the Venezuelan state of Sucre and a longtime fighter in the Bolivarian Revolution. And it is an honor that you're able to join us each month and talk to us about some of the important issues and ongoing necessity for solidarity with Venezuela. Professor Luis Acuña, the floor is yours.
Hello, Alison. Thanks again to you for this 19th in a row webinar in behalf of the people of Venezuela. As I said before, you are our voice abroad, and we are today very happy that we have such a good panel. First of all, I want to thank CIKIAH. He made a very, very short explanation of what is happening with Venezuela, and mainly he shows the hypocrisy of some countries regarding Venezuela. It is very easy for a country to recognize a president that is not the constitutional president and then use that as an excuse for not recognizing President Nicolás Maduro as the legal and constitutional president of Venezuela. As Camilla said, once you don't recognize Presidente Nicolás Maduro and you recognize any other, then that country will not recognize any appointment that the Presidente Maduro made. And that's why they don't want to recognize Alex Saab as a diplomat, because he's appointed by Nicolás Maduro. And that's something that we will have to solve. Juan Guaidó is nothing. Juan Guaidó is only what the United States recognize or what Canada recognized, but Juan Guaidó is nothing in Venezuela. And the diplomats that Juan Guaidó named can do nothing for the Venezuelan people. So that's just an excuse of those countries. I want to thank LUISA Martinez for her very, very important explanation of that solidarity of people with Venezuela and the way she helped for those three women to go and show what's going on here in our country. And I want to thank Camilla for being tonight with us. And if you look at the letter of Alex, and you hear the words of Camilla, you can recognize that they are not defending themselves. I mean, they are not fighting for Camilla, they are not fighting for Alex, they are fighting for a family, and they are fighting for a country. That's very important in the letter of Alex. He's very, very concerned about the meaning of his kidnapping regarding Venezuela, regarding the liberty, regarding the independence of Venezuela, more than he is kidnapped. And that's the way people in Venezuela fight. We are concerned of what is going on with our country, more than what is going on with each one of us. And that's why this webinar is very important, because that way, those friends that are in Canada, that are in the United States, that are all around the world, that join this webinar can recognize what's going on in Venezuela. That's the very important role that CIKIAH made today. That is the very important role that LUISA made today. And that's the very important role that Camilla made today. Each one of them were able to show that we have a fight against those who think that because they have the power, they can just smash the Venezuelan people. And we will keep fighting. And we will be able that Alex Saab be free, because he's a kidnapped man. He's not, he did not commit any crime. He just tried to help the Venezuelan people, and the US and Canada and the European Union made things for kidnap him in Cabo Verde and then to kidnap him in the US, and they are trying to send him to jail, but we will keep fighting. And thank you, Alison, for making able that Camilla and LUISA and CIKIAH can show what they think and what they know about Venezuela, and show that to all those people who are joining you in this webinar, that we will have the 20th in a month. Thank you, Alisa.
Thank you very much, Professor Luis Acuña. You will see in the chat, and I echo the words as well, Sean O'Donoghue, who is here joining us from Quebec, says, thank you so much for your generosity in coming every month and participating in the pickets, no matter the important work that you have to do in Venezuela. We very much appreciate your support and perspective. And thank you again for being with us. Also in the chat, I wanted to let people know there are some other greetings. We have a greeting as well from Sean O'Donoghue, who says, thank you for organizing this venue every month. And he is speaking on behalf of the Ad Hoc Committee for Freedom for Alex Saab in Quebec. And it's great to work together with them. And also there is some ideas and proposals from a friend here in Vancouver, Francisco. So I encourage people to read that as well. And we will be in touch. Now we're going to just have some greetings from folks representing movements across Canada, and hopefully a special greeting from Colombia as well, joining the monthly Picket Action for Free Alex Saab and US-Canada Hands Off Venezuela. And then we will take our group photo together. I'm going to promote a few folks, but also, if anyone is here representing an organization, please feel free to raise your hand, and we will be able to hopefully hear from you today. Mary Carmen, I am promoting you to panelist, and once you join us, give me 1 second, folks. And then we'll also try to watch the trailer again for the Alex Saab movie. We've trying another method, so I hope it works. But first, Mary Carmen Guevara is here from ALBA Movimientos in Ottawa. She is a leading activist for Venezuela and Cuba solidarity, and it's wonderful you could join us here today. Mary Carmen, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alison, and thank you for everybody who spoke, especially thank you, Camila, for being with us. It is very important to let people know what's the injustice they are making with your husband. Anyway, greeting from ALBA Movimientos Sociales in Ottawa. Saludos de aquí de Ottawa, de los movimientos, ALBA Movimientos Sociales.
Greetings from social movements here in Ottawa. Thank you, Camila, for being here today with us. We're here to support you, to express our solidarity to you, and we are working in order to free the 5 Cubans. We have done that for several years with Alison and many persons in the world, and we will be able to achieve it. Alex will be free soon.
Es un placer ver al profesor Acuña siempre con
It's a
nosotros.
pleasure to see Professor Acuña with us. Huge hug.
Thank you, Mary Carmen. It is great to have you here today. Gustavo Rojas, ¿me escucha? Can you hear me, Gustavo?
Sí, te escucho muy bien. Muy
Yes,
contento.
I can hear you. I'm very happy to be here.
Gustavo, if you would like to give greetings, Gustavo Rojas is a leading activist in solidarity with Venezuela and Cuba in Colombia. It is great to have you with us here today, Gustavo. Oh, and if you can move your camera a little bit down, we could see your whole face. I think Gustavo is frozen, so we'll try again in a second. Oh, Gustavo, can you hear me? Are you there? We're going to turn off your video and maybe the audio function will work better.
Well, thank you, Alice, very much. And I want to say, what?
Oh, it seems like Gustavo dropped off. We'll see if he can come back. But I did see Cesar Sanchez, who's here from the U.S.-Cuba Normalization Committee and the New York-New Jersey-Cuba Sea Coalition. If you'd like to say a few words, Cesar.
Thank you, Alison. Saludos a todos. And I just want to give, so much respect for the Venezuelan people, and to Camila. I cannot imagine what you're going through and your whole and your family. You know, coming from the belly of the beast, we understand that as a country here, the empire is declining, and I have faith, and I have so much positivity, insurance that you will reunite with your husband. But we have to continue the struggle. We have to continue. Everybody here participates. You know, just like the sister Luisa Martinez in your message, brother CIKIAH Thomas, and your fantastic informative insight, that's very important, that we gotta keep on spreading the word, unifying as much as possible, and just keep on pushing. And Camila, you know, from here, from the U.S.-Cuba normalization and the New York, New Jersey, Cuba C coalition, you know, we want to extend our friendship to you, and that we will always be on your side and will help out, the Venezuelan people as much as we can.
Thank you, Cesar. It's great to have you with us here today. I think Gustavo's audio is not quite connected yet, so we'll see if that works out. But for now, I'll introduce Andrew Barry. Andrew is here from Vancouver's Anti-War Coalition, Mobilization Against War and Occupation. Andrew?
Thanks, Allison. I wanted to give a special greetings to Camila for joining us today. Yeah, it's such a terrible thing that's happened to Alex, and we give all our solidarity from our anti-war coalition here in Vancouver. It's a pain that should never happen. It's a pain that must be overcome, and social justice activists and people around the world are united in this call to bring Alex back home to his family and to his people, where he belongs. For what he has done is to stand up for the poor people of the world, to stand up for Venezuela, to stand up against the injustice that the United States has imposed on Venezuela. The sanctions that the United States have done against the people of Venezuela, they have done across the world. As an anti-war organizer, part of an organization, we focus a lot on what the United States, Canada, and Europe have imposed on the world through war, through countless wars across Asia, Africa, the Middle East, and Latin America, killing millions and millions of people. And part of that war is the sanctions that they do. They killed 1.5 million Iraqi civilians in the 1990s just through sanctions. We know about the at least 40,000 Venezuelans who have been killed by these sanctions since they escalated them in the last 5 years. These sanctions are war crimes committed by the United States, the governments of Canada, and in Europe against people in Venezuela and across the world. And this escalation that they have done against Alex Saab, a diplomat who went to secure food, medicines, and fuel for a people under these sanctions, it's something that he should be celebrated for what he has done for people in Venezuela, and he's done as a model for people around the world, that we can stand up to the injustices imposed by the United States and their allies across the developing world. And instead, the United States breaks all protocols, all international laws by kidnapping Alex Saab for this. This is something that should never happen to anyone. And then we learn about the heartbreak about what happened to both his parents while he's been in prison unjustly. We call for the immediate release of Alex Saab, and we must continue this case. From watching the documentary about Alex Saab today, you can see the similarities to the case of Alex Saab to other political prisoners around the world, including the Cuban Five. And it was through relentless campaigning until they were freed that helped in the case. We must continue this for Alex Saab. We must continue this for Camila, for the entire family, and for all of Venezuela, and for all oppressed people across the world fighting for their dignity and justice. Free Alex Saab. Ganaremos.
That's right. That's right.
Ganaremos. Thank you. We will win. It looks like Gustavo has not been able to come back and join us again, but again, greetings from the Colombian movement in solidarity with Cuba and Gustavo Rojas. Also in the chat, there have been greetings posted from Fire This Time Movement for Social Justice in Canada, as well as the Hamilton Coalition to Stop the War. So thank you for that as well. We are going to try to show the video, the trailer for the new documentary about the case of Alex Saab once again. And at this time, while we're getting that displayed, I encourage people to find their signs or just get ready to turn their cameras on and participate in the group photo. So we'll go ahead and queue up that video to close out the speakers and panel section of our webinar here today. And Camilla, of course, if there's anything you want to add at the end, let me know. I will ask.
Todas las opciones están sobre la mesa, todas. Las fuertes y las menos fuertes. Todas las opciones están sobre la mesa, todas.
Asumir formalmente las competencias.
Más sanciones, más presión. Están sobre la mesa, todas.
La mejor resolución sería acelerar el colapso.
Perdimos muchas vidas con ese bloqueo.
Porque nos robaron Citgo, porque nos robaron monómeros, porque no quedaron recursos, porque nos incautaron el oro en Inglaterra y los niños se mueren.
En el año 2018, Alex Saab es nombrado enviado especial de Venezuela y esta es una copia de su nombramiento oficial.
Llega a la bolsa y me da escalofrío, mira que no estoy mintiendo, llega a la bolsa y la gente, la comunidad salía como desesperada.
Había detrás como una mano mágica.
Este barco es el Fortune y es el primero de los 5 buques iraníes cargados de gasolina que ha entrado en aguas territoriales de Venezuela.
Venezuela, detrás de esos barcos estaba Alex Saab.
Que no existía un orden de detención de Cabo Verde, no existía un orden de detención de Interpol.
La violación más grasa, más evidente en este caso es el artículo 29 de la Convención de Viena.
Por primera vez en la historia del mundo, nosotros podemos decir que se llegó a detener a un funcionario diplomático.
En mi carrera no he visto algo semejante.
Si tú ayudas a Venezuela, entonces te vamos a secuestrar, te vamos a vestir de naranja y te vamos a mostrar ante todo el mundo como un criminal. Porque tú fuiste en contra de los intereses de los Estados Unidos.
¿A costa de qué? De que nos está haciendo un bien a todos los venezolanos. No me parece justo.
We will post the links again in the chat to the trailer as well as the full video. You can see already what an excellent film this will be, talking about the sanctions on Venezuela, as well as the struggle against them and organizing against them, specifically the CLAP food distribution program, and of course the important case of Alex Saab, a kidnapped diplomat held in the United States. So we will go to the group photo part of our program now, but there's one small question I wanted to see if Camilla might be willing to answer or provide some perspective on. The question is, why does the United States flagrantly violate international law, irrespective of the United Nations? And how do they get away with this? How do they get away with continuing to act as a terrorist and criminal nation, particularly when it comes to the case of Alex Saab? Camilla, do you have any thoughts on this and final words for tonight?
È una risposta
It's an important question, very important question. And surely I don't have the right answer, but I can say though that Cape Verde, when Alex Saab was there, the United Nations did pronounce itself denouncing Alex Saab's kidnapping and also putting a stop to Alex's immediate extradition. Cape Verde wanted to not pay attention to that decision, as if the 4 special rapporteurs and the working group did not exist. They did not pay attention to the Africa Court and the Africa's Commission on Human Rights either. At this moment, we asked for an update to the United Nations so that they pronounce themselves once again on the violation on human rights, on the violation of due process for Alex Saab in the United States. And as you said, Alison, yesterday there was this peasants demonstration, and there the peasants submitted a letter before the United Nations demanding them to pronounce themselves as regards the illegality of Alex's kidnapping and demanding his immediate release. So I don't have a concrete answer to this question you're posing, but I do hope that the United Nations keeps or has the strength to pronounce itself with regard to this case, because they must protect all persons' human rights. And I want to make a brief comment on the documentary to conclude, and that is that I encourage you, all of you, to watch the documentary. This is a perfect chronology timeline. I'm sorry, give me a minute. I'm sorry, I apologize. I was choking, I don't know what happened. So I was saying that the documentary is a perfect compilation of everything that has happened with Alex. And it's a perfect timeline of his case. We start by addressing the impact of the coercive unilateral measures, which are illegal and inhuman, as the United Nations rapporteur said, and how this affected Venezuela and how Alex's character as a diplomat, as a special person to go on a humanitarian mission to bring medicine, food, and fuel to the Venezuelan people, to relieve the impositions by the United States. Thank you.
Thank you for that important perspective. We will win. Ganaremos, venceremos. Alex will return. And I know that his case will be raised in various venues during the United Nations General Assembly, which is taking place in New York City right now. So we will do what we can to support that, and then also keep our eyes towards the trial beginning in Miami. So we will continue. I thank you again to all of our panelists today and everyone who gave greetings, to Luisa Martinez joining us from Portland, Oregon, to CIKIAH Thomas from here in Canada, to Professor Luis Acuña speaking direct from Venezuela, and to CAMILLA Saab also joining us from Venezuela. It has been a great time today. We are ready to take our photo. So again, you will receive a message on your phone that asks if you would like to be upgraded to panelist, or on your computer, please say yes if you want to participate in the group photo. We will go ahead and send those out now, and then we will do some chanting together and take the photo today. If you haven't received the invitation and you want to join us, please raise your hand and we will make sure that you get the invitation. The invitation will ask if you want to be a panelist, but don't worry, say yes, and you will be able to turn on your camera today. Well, just asking people one more time, but again, thank you everyone. October 16th will mark 1 year since the Alex Saab was kidnapped from Cape Verde and sent to the United States. It's very important that we come together on that day in whatever venue possible, and that we also continue to fight for Alex Saab and an end to sanctions and attacks on Venezuela throughout the time being. The next Venezuela picket action, keep your eyes and ears peeled for the announcement, will come on Thursday, October 20th. So just following the 1 year anniversary on October 16th, we'll be sending out all the information. Some folks are saying they don't have a camera. No worries. We will miss you in our group photo, but great to have you with us here today. If anyone has not received an invitation to turn on their camera and would like to join the group photo, then please do so. And we will go ahead, please raise your hand in the chat and we'll send that out. But we'll go ahead and take our photo here together to demand immediate freedom for Alex Saab and an end to US-Canada sanctions on Venezuela. Free Alex Saab!
Free Alex Saab!
Free Alex Saab!
Free Alex Saab!
No
Free
to
Alex
sanctions on Venezuela!
Venceremos.
We will win. Venceremos.
Free Alex Saab!
Venceremos.
Free Alex Saab.
Free Alex Saab.
Vamos, Alex, resiste. Venceremos.
Some folks are still joining us, but thank you again, everyone, for joining us here today. We'll have another panel next month for the monthly picket action. It'll be the 20th consecutive monthly picket action. It is
Free Alex Saab.
Here
Free
and
Alex Saab.
Alex Saab. Ready? See you again. Venceremos. We will win.
We will win.
Venceremos.
Free Alex Saab. Free Alex Saab.
Free Alex Saab. Free Alex Saab.
Free Alex Saab.